So, hello, Liz. Good morning.
Hello,
Um,
Gavin.
Thank you for joining me.
Not at all. So I really only work in London and I work on Zoom.
All right. And with Zoom therapy, do you find that clients are a bit reticent about that? They have concerns as to whether it works or not?
No, because a lot of my clients are in Australia, they're in America, and some different places in Europe. So I have to be able to work with them on Zoom. I think at the beginning, going back to pre-COVID, I sort of thought, oh, I don't know if I can do this on Zoom. But when you have to do it, you learn to do it.
That's right.
And as a consequence, I've been working on Zoom with no problems ever since. I
Mm.
mean, I do prefer face to face. If I get the chance, I would prefer to work face to face. And one of the things I do when I work with clients is say, I'm going to lift your arm, you're going to go deeper. So when I work with them on Zoom, I just say to them, you're going to lift your arm and you're going to go deeper. So it's just changing it slightly. But if not, it's exactly the same as working face to face.
Yeah. I think some clients have a feeling that they might miss out on something by not being in person.
But that can be people that aren't very experienced. People that are used to meditating can just go into it whenever.
Yeah.
So it's really not a problem. I think because we project ourselves onto people, if we have a problem working on Zoom, your client will have a problem working on Zoom.
Yeah.
But if you're quite happy to work on Zoom, then the client just accepts it.
And you mentioned that you've been doing that since COVID. A lot of us had to change our working
Yeah.
practices since then. But your experience is of many years predating that.
Oh, yeah. I've been doing this for, I'm coming up to 21 years now. Um, and up until COVID, I did usually work face to face, but I occasionally, because I was working with America and Australia, I had to work on Zoom. But I did find COVID actually taught me to work on Zoom because I had no choice.
Mm, mm.
Um, but everybody's different. Everybody gets different things, and some people want to work on Zoom because they want to be in their own home. They want to relax in their own home, and it suits them. Other people want to come because they want to feel almost the protection of doing it with a therapist in front of them.
Mm.
But either way, both work.
With phobias that have a origin in a past life,
Mm.
um, let's suppose that we have a potential client viewing who has tried all sorts of things and the phobia is just intractable. Um, and they wanted to find out how their phobia could be related to a past life. What kind of links have there been in the past life to a present day phobia?
Well, everybody I work with who has a phobia, you take them into a past life and you clear it. It's very rare that it started in this life. Um, Water, a lot of people are afraid of water. You take them back to a past life and they've either drowned or, something could have happened in connection with water. So the easiest thing is to take them back, tell them to go and find the root cause of it. You can always rise them above the picture, or you can put them on a TV screen if they're frightened by the thought of it. But you tell them they're completely safe. We're just going to rise above it. We're going to look at it. We're going to see it. Now, phobias are often caused by unresolved anger issues.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, let's say somebody fell off a ship. They would be angry at the person who could have pushed them off or they thought pushed them off. They'd be angry at the ship and they'd be angry at themselves. So you have to deal with the anger and you have to deal with the forgiveness. Everything to do this work is fundamentally about forgiveness, and it's about forgiving self. You can say, I will forgive Joe Bloggs, but actually you're forgiving yourself. So a classic example, let's say they've never got on with their brother-in-law in this life. You take them into a past life and they find that they're being pushed underwater by the person who they recognize as their brother-in-law in this life. We then do the forgiveness. We pull them out of the water because it's a soul fragment that's stuck underneath the water. This is always about soul fragments. So you're bringing the soul fragment back. You're collecting the soul fragment. You're forgiving it. And by the time you wake them up, they've no longer got a fear of water. And they probably say, oh, I quite like my brother-in-law now, because you've done the forgiveness and you've cleared the negative energy. You know, phobias are a complete mixture. The only phobia that sometimes is connected to this life is something called emetophobia.
Oh, yes.
Emetophobia is when people are afraid of being sick. And often it turns out you take them back into the classroom and the teacher, they put their hand up telling the teacher they feel sick, and the teacher has ignored them or something, and then they're sick. So then they feel very ashamed about what's happened. So by releasing that, by forgiving the teacher after they've given them a good telling off, you know, I was feeling sick, how dare you do this to me? So you help them to take their power back from the situation, and then they can forgive it, and then you let emetophobia go. But 99% of all other phobias, they're always past life things.
It's interesting that you mentioned forgiveness there, because I think for a lot of clients, there can be that feeling that if they forgive somebody, that they're letting them off the hook, that the person goes unpunished.
Well, you have to get them so they understand the overall picture. So, especially because I do a lot of this life inner child work, I often make the person very big and I make the aggressor very small. And I can bring in, say, the Archangel Michael. If I'm dealing with Indian clients, it can be Vishnu or something like that. Guru Nanak, if I'm dealing with, everybody has their own sort of deity that they trust. So you bring in a deity and you make them very big, you make the deity very big, and you give the person a sword. So then they can turn around and say, how dare you think this is acceptable? How dare you do this to me? I refuse to give you my power. I am a sovereign being of light. I stand in my own power at all times, and I refuse to do this. And you can get them to smash the person up if you like, but then they can get to the point where they can forgive. And sometimes you say to them, can you forgive this person? No, I'll never forgive them. Okay, fine. Can you forgive yourself for putting yourself in that situation? Yeah, I can forgive myself. And once they've forgiven themselves, you say, you sure you don't want to forgive Fred? Oh, I might as well, mightn't I? So then you get them to forgive the other person, and then you clear whatever it is.
It's interesting.
Forgiveness is the key to clearing everything.
It's interesting, isn't it, when the person has regained their power, that they then find that they have that ability to forgive the other.
Yeah, it's all about reclaiming their power. Once they understand they are sovereign, they are in charge, and they don't need to give their power away, they can let go of a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I've also worked with people who go into, if you like, famous lives, but I don't normally believe most of them. I've worked with a lot of Mary Magdalens and a lot of Jesus Christ and stuff, and they're obviously tapping into the Akashic records. But I do know there was one case in my book when the girl went into the life of Judy Garland, and she was, take it where I can't stand the light, take these cameras away and everything. And I learned a lot about Judy Garland from her that I didn't know until I later read up on it. So she was certainly a past life of Judy Garland, and she didn't want to be. She didn't like it. She didn't like the fame. I knew she had I'm not sure it was another daughter or a son or anything. I learned things from putting her into hypnosis. But most of the time, you know, when people go into those sort of lives of I'm famous, you know that's not really the case.
Yes.
But she was genuine.
We were talking, Liana and I, in the first video, about whether or not there have been past lives that she was able to verify. She doesn't actually get involved in looking to see whether they're verifiable, because as far as she's concerned, if it works, it works.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if the past life is real, and I'm very much of that way of thinking. However, there are many people who are interested, and occasionally I've helped clients to see if we can verify things. Sometimes some quite startling information comes up that seems to substantiate what the client experiences in hypnosis, and at other times we're just at a loss. We can't say this is quite possibly a life, but there's no way of knowing this because not every life is documented.
No, and sometimes people hold on to things for certain reasons. I always believe that if you go into a past life, you're going in there because there's something to resolve. This isn't about whether you were Henry VIII or Mary Queen of Scots. And luckily, most of the clients that come to see me, they come to see me for me to help resolve their problems. They're not what you call past life travelers. However, I do remember a case many years ago of a girl that was a hanging judge. She went into a lifetime of this judge, and he used to regularly put his black cap on and order people's death sentences. Now, after that, she was very remorseful, and we had to do a lot of forgiveness. And then she found out, she actually researched it, and she found herself as that hanging judge. So that was a case where we actually got the proof that the life she went into needed to be seen. But the reason it happened was because she needed to sort it out. She needed to forgive herself for what had happened. So it wasn't about, oh, I'm famous and I was a judge. It's very much, I have to deal with this because I've been a terrible person. Yeah. She was a very nice girl in this life, but we had to let it go.
It can be quite a shock, can't it, to a client when they come along. I think on the whole, most of us tend to have clients who are nice, good, ethical people, who wouldn't want to harm somebody, couldn't even think of it. And then when they come face to face of a past life where they actually were quite unpleasant in a variety of ways, it can be quite a surprise to them.
Well, I always say to them that we have been everything and we've done everything. Everything is about experience. There's never any judgment. But if we're being shown something, we're being shown something because it needs to be resolved. It's never about just seeing a past life and saying, oh, I'm a housewife and blah, blah, blah. It's always about something that either needs to be understood or it needs to be resolved. So once you do that, then they can let it go and they take their power back, because we give our power away in past lives. So often a lot of the work I do is resolving what happened in that past life, helping them forgive it, releasing any oaths and vows of vengeance they may have made against them or against somebody else. And then again, it's all about forgiveness. So ultimately, everything is about releasing oaths and vows and total forgiveness of self and of other people. But the other people don't really matter, because ultimately it's important to forgive yourself.
If somebody was to ask you about future life progression, client came knocking on your door and you said, oh, I fancy some of this, can you tell me more?
Well, the first thing you've got to realize, if you take everything's on a sort of loop, so it's all going on at the same time. And you've also got to realize there's no such things as past lives and there's no such things as future lives, because they are all going on at the same time. But we step on and off different timelines. And at the end of every lifetime, we have sort of some type of life review to look back on what we did right and what we did wrong and what we need to work on. So as a result of what we did right and what we did wrong, we then go on to a new life timeline. And then that timeline will work itself out in order for us to progress from what we haven't worked on before. Now, I'll give you an example. I remember a case of a girl who was dating a drug addict. And she was in love with this guy, but she was afraid it was going to ruin her life. So, and she was only in about her 20s and 30s. So I said to her, right, we're going to stay at a crossroads. You're at a crossroads, and we're going to go on two possible journeys in this life. So I said, if you stay with him, this is what will happen. If you leave him, this is what will happen. And she went on a couple of different timelines of, if she stayed with him, she would then get addicted herself and things would be bad. And at the same time, if she left him, what she could do. Now, from that, I took her on. I said, right, okay, so bearing in mind you allow yourself to become a drug addict and all of this happens. It doesn't have to happen, but I'm just getting you to look at it. Go into the future life after that and tell me what will happen and how you will live your life. Well, she went into a past life where everything was terrible. She became a drug addict. I can't remember what happened, but it's like she had a child. The child was born addicted, and then things happened. And I said, go into the life after that. And again, it was more of the same. It was misery. It was not good at all. So I took her back to the crossroads. I said, right, now, if you go forward in this life, tell me what you're doing as a result of having left him. It might be a struggle, but you will manage it. And she, I don't know, went into sort of a managerial position. Her life took hold and everything was good. So I said, right, go into the future life of what will happen if you do that. And she had a good life. She had children. Everything worked out well. I said, after that life, go into the one after that. And again, it was good. It was positive. It was progressive. So I then brought her back to the crossroads. And I said to her, right, what are you going to do? She said, I'm going to leave him. But it's not set in stone to the point where we have to work through what we need to work through. And then it will be our choice, because it's always our choice on some level, as to what future life that person goes into. So when you say sort of people take people into past lives, they're taking them into a possible timeline. They're not taking them into something that is definitely going to happen. So, you know, it's not necessarily helpful unless it's done in the right way. And I'm not criticizing people that take people into past lives, everybody into future lives. Everybody can work however they want to. But I do find working sort of everyday work, it's often very helpful to take people into the future in this life. And then if you want to, you can say, right, as a result of doing this and things moving and things working, go into the life, the possible future life you can have, having worked on yourself to this extent. So future lives, everything's about timelines. And we can easily step off the timeline and make a mistake. So there's no such thing. That future will never happen unless they get back on the correct timeline. So, you know, the thing is, when somebody comes to you, sometimes people will come through curiosity, but more than ever, well, most of my people come to me and they say, I'm suffering from depression, I'm suffering from anxiety, I need past life regression. And it's really because they've been everywhere, nothing's worked. So then you're the last resort. And that's when you disappoint them and say, if you want past life regression, I'm more than happy to take you into past lives. But I think you'll find the root cause of your problem is in this life. Saying that, if it's a phobia, no, it's probably past life. But usually, most of the stuff you have to sort it out in this life, and then you can take them into past lives, because we choose our parents, we choose our situations. So then we can look back and say, I understand now why I chose my father. I understand why I've got involved with my husband and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, past life is very powerful. But often, if you want to sort out everyday problems, you have to deal with the this life parental stuff first.
Yeah. Hello, and thank you for visiting the Past Life Therapists Association YouTube channel. If you'd like to know more about past life regression or to join the association, then go to the website www.pastliferegression.co.uk. Thank you.